Damn, it's hot.
Of course it's hot. It's July and you don't have air conditioning, and I was able to carry on both sides of a conversation in my head, and both sides agreed. They both said, "God damn, it's hot." Summer in the Los Angeles suburbs could be especially miserable. In those days in the late 1960s, LA was basically 70 miles across and 1 story tall, so everything was paved, traffic was heavy, the smog was thick enough to be cut like a cake, and the houses were barely 15 feet apart. It made for a dense, hot environment that only got worse every year. I had graduated high school the month before and wasn't leaving for boot camp for another 3 weeks, so my summer was my own, as there was no point in getting a new job for a couple weeks. My sisters were older and married and, of course, out of the house. As a family with only one car, I was without a vehicle during the day, and it was too hot to ride my old bike. I decided to walk to the Orange Julius a couple of blocks away. Oh yeah, I can taste the sweetness now. Maybe I'll go for that new pineapple one. The sweltering sidewalk was at least a few degrees cooler than our insanely humid, toasty house because the canopy of trees in our neighborhood made it markedly cooler. Wearing a pair of old shorts, a ratty t-shirt, and flip-flops, I grabbed some money from my desk and started wandering. Our neighborhood had mostly been built in the 20s and 30s, before the Southern California population grew beyond reason right after W4U. So many of the houses around us sat on larger lots and reflected a couple of styles, mostly craftsman-ish bungalows and a few reflecting Spanish notes. It was actually a pleasant street, with a mix of families. Some had school-age kids, others were retirees, the rest between the two extremes. All were working-class people. A nice place, even for a 19-year-old. As I reached mid-block, I passed a yellow house just as someone came out to get their mail. "Hey," the gentle voice called out to me. I turned and saw Doreen looking at me from her front porch. "Hey to you." I actually had known Doreen for several years. We were the same age. She and her family had lived right next to us before moving a block away earlier that year for more space, more yard, and the all-important backyard in-ground pool. We used to see each other quite often and had spent a decent amount of our free time together. We were friends and had shared many of our thoughts and dreams with each other. Our fondness for each other was deep, but we had never even thought of becoming romantic. Like I said, friends. "Where are you headed? It's hotter than hell today." I had a taste for an Orange Julius. The OJ store was barely 300 feet from her house. "Oh, that sounds nice. Mind if I join you?" "Sure, I'll buy." She opened her door to throw the mail onto a table, then walked to where I was standing. We resumed the journey. We made small talk as we walked, talking about mutual friends and how happy we were to finally be done with high school. After getting our drinks, we walked back to her house. "Let's sit on the patio out back. It's much cooler there." Cool sounded very appealing, and we went to her backyard, relaxing around a small table, sipping our deliciously cold, sweet drinks as we talked. "You still seeing that guy? What's his name? Dude with the VW?" I asked her. Her face soured. "You mean Daryl?" "No, I dumped that jerk when I found out he was. Seeing that wench Hillary when he wasn't with me." "Wow, that sucks. Brilliant repartee wasn't one of my strong points." "Yeah, whatever. I'm single again. When do you leave for the army?" 3 weeks. I'm just killing time until then." We sat in silence for a few minutes, enjoying our drinks, until she said, "I'm too hot. Let's get in the pool. That's why my parents bought this place." She stood up and walked toward the inviting water. "Aren't you going to change first?" I said, expecting her to go in to get into a swimsuit. In addition to my lack of conversational brilliance, I was also alarmingly slow on the uptake. "No," she replied. "I'm going to do something I've wanted to do for a long time." She turned to face me. "You going to join me?" On that note, she grabbed the hem of her tank top and pulled it over her head, then hooked her thumbs into the waistband of her shorts and pushed them to the ground, stepping out of them. There she stood, her hands on her hips and an intense look on her face, as if she was daring me. Now, even though Doreen and I were friends first, I had to admit she was a beauty. So tall. Only a few inches shy of my own 6 feet. She was a long, delightful drink of fresh water. Her skin was a bit dark, probably from her mother's Mexican heritage. Her short hair was almost coal black, and her open, pretty face held dark eyes that shone with intelligence and wit. She was on the thin side, which accentuated her height. Her body was toned and strong, her wide hips accentuating her trim waist. Damn, she was hot. I knew she was pretty, but standing there in a bikini, she was like a beautiful vision. Ahem. She made her gaze even more intense. I finally got the hint. Like I said, slow on the uptake. Never having undressed in front of a girl before, I just kind of followed her lead and stood. Up, I returned her intense glare. Without another word, Doreen suddenly undressed fully. I knew what women were supposed to look like. My dad kept his magazines in the bathroom, and I had spent hundreds of hours appreciating the perfect airbrushed beauties they contained. But those magazines might as well have been the National Geographic, with pictures of amazing places I would never get to see in person. This was different. This was very, very different. If I thought Doreen was pretty before she was a goddess now, this was unexplored territory for me. Are you going to stare at me, or are we going to get in? What? I stuttered. Oh yeah, the pool. She turned away from me, throwing her stuff on the chair. I don't think chlorine is good for them, she opined. I was frozen again. She was a work of art. This was all just too much for my inexperienced mind, and I froze again. Doreen looked over her shoulder at me and smiled. I did that on purpose. You are just too cute. She straightened and walked toward the pool, then took a smooth, athletic dive into the cool water. I was transfixed. She surfaced in the middle of the pool, able to stand on the bottom. Get your butt in here, she commanded. It's just the two of us. No one can see us. Just do it. She was right. The yard was surrounded by a tall and thick copse of trees and tropical bushes. We were alone and as isolated as we could be in that place. I finally snapped out of my paralysis and realized that this 16th day of July 1968 was going to be a very, very different day, like no other day in my life. My heart was racing, my brain was mush, I couldn't focus. Screw that, you heard her, just do it. With surprising firmness, I threw my stuff to the side and stood up straight. I heard a short intake of breath from Doreen. Oh, she sighed. That did a lot to boost my confidence in these untested waters. Yeah, I sighed, and took 2 steps before diving into the water with her. Once under the surface, I guided towards her and came up about 2 feet in front of her. We stood there in the pool, face to face, eyes locked, not saying a word. Even with her wet hair pushed straight back, she was stunning, perhaps even more so. After about 30 seconds of silence, we both dropped into the water to about neck depth and began circling each other slowly in ever-widening circles, essentially weightless in the water as we bounced gently off the bottom. Our eyes remained locked on each other. She spoke first in a hoarse whisper. Have you ever done this before? I decided to play along. Done what? Swim? She giggled. You gonna make me say it? I just smiled at her, and her voice was barely audible. Have you ever been with a girl? Although I was expecting the question, it did present me with a quandary. You see, until about 3 minutes earlier, I had never done this, the quandary, the puzzle. Facing me was what I said next. I could lie and take on an air of false bravado, strutting and boasting. But it would be a bad choice. For one thing, we were friends. Neither of us were comfortable lying at all, much less to each other. For another, it was a lie that would be easily exposed. I had not the slightest idea of what to do, and my ignorant fumbling would soon expose that. But what if she mocked me if I confessed the truth? I was sure I was probably one of the last 19-year-olds around here who hadn't had any experience yet. It felt risky, but I had to be honest. The truth shall set you free. Let's go with that. Well, until today, no. You are my very first. Her face betrayed no emotion. She didn't laugh or look shocked. Her eyes remained locked on mine. I'm honored, she said softly. Can I tell you a secret? Of course, you're my first too. My eyes widened. I was surprised to hear that. Really? Really? I just thought... You just thought what? Well, you went with that VW dude for over 2 years. I just figured... You figured wrong. We did a lot of stuff, but I never gave that up to him. I'm still a cherry. I didn't know what to say. Wow. Doreen chuckled. It wasn't for his lack of effort. He pressured me a lot. So what did you do if you didn't do that? You really want to know? I did, and I didn't. I felt like knowing was important to figuring out what was going on between us. Yeah, Doreen sighed. The usual stuff that people do after they've been dating a whole. We made out and all that. I never let him go too far. I felt a quick pang of jealousy until I remembered that she was right here with me. Get choked, VW dude.
So you never nah.
Oh, he tried his best, but nothing came out of it. Are you shocked? Not really, no. Maybe a tad jealous. I smiled as I said that last to ease any harshness. I was genuinely curious. We had been drawing ever so slightly closer as we circled. Doreen let out a quick laugh. Don't be. I didn't let him do anything. That's probably why he started going out with that wench Hillary. As it turns out, I'm glad I didn't give him my cherry. It kind of creeped me out. Creeped you out? Yeah, it was obvious that it was all about him. He didn't care enough about me to make love. He wanted me for his own selfish reasons. We continue to move in smaller and smaller circles. What about you? How is it that you've never been with anyone before? I wasn't surprised by the question. Well, for one thing, it was impossible to meet girls at a Catholic all-boys high school. She laughed out loud at that one. Yeah, I guess it would be. And quite honestly, I'm not exactly a model of male confidence and have no idea of what to do with a girl, like right now. I'm in a pool with a beautiful girl and I have no idea what to do next. Well, thank you for saying I'm beautiful. She moved closer and closer to me, stopping. Barely a foot away, her eyes locked on mine. We can figure the rest out together, she said softly, then leaned forward and planted the gentlest kiss on my lips. It was so right, so welcome, just the perfect thing to do at that time. In that moment I was filled with such a sense of contentment and joy, and realized that I had almost overlooked a very special person who was already in my life. Come with me, she said after she broke the kiss, moving toward the ladder near us. As she pulled herself up and out of the pool, I once again admired her perfect body, the water draining down from her. How did I never see her like this? She's perfect. I followed her out of the pool and she lightly took my hand, guiding us toward a large pad. About the size of a double bed on the decking next to the pool. We lay down next to and facing each other, less than a foot between us, touching only at the knees. It seemed the natural thing to do. It was all so natural that I suddenly felt very relaxed. This was right, so right. She really was so very pretty. I reached over with my upper hand, my left, and gently touched her cheek. She just as gently used her right hand to stroke my arm. Yeah, this was right. As if on cue, we both leaned toward the other and kissed with a long, lingering kiss of lovers. Our tongues probed and danced, and I tasted the last vestiges of the orange Julius she had drunk. Considering that I had never gotten anything more than a fence post peck on the cheek from any of the very few girls I had dated, this was very new to me. But I took to it like someone born to it. Our lips molded together, and our breathing quickened. My hand seemed to have a mind of its own, reaching across and resting on her waist and hips. My being was overcome with sensations, taking in the feel and taste of her lips and tongue, and feeling her warm, smooth body under my hand, the sun beating down on us. All of it, all at once. Doreen broke our kiss and pulled back a few inches. Lie on your back, I want to look at you, she commanded. I followed her direction and she sat partway up so she was looking down at me. I was mesmerized by the sight of this beautiful girl next to me, her olive skin aglow. I was thoroughly smitten. Doreen began exploring me with her eyes and hands, touching first my shoulders. While I wasn't exactly Mr. Universe, I was reasonably fit and had decent muscle definition. I wasn't ashamed to take off my shirt in public. I momentarily felt like a science specimen and smiled. I like your body, she told me softly as her hands continued to lightly brush over me. I'm pretty fond of yours too, I answered. She looked toward my face and smiled. Thank you, but you don't have much to compare. It too. I don't need to compare it. You are gorgeous. I swore I saw her eyes get misty before she bent toward my face and gave me another gentle kiss. You are just the sweetest man. An hour ago, I had never felt a real girl like this, and here I was, lying next to this beauty. I didn't want to spoil this incredible moment. I rested my hand on her smooth thigh, and then away went. It was perfect, and in the end we lied down, breathing heavily. I felt like I had to say something. You are amazing. I had no idea it could feel like that. I sat up and leaned toward her, putting my hand behind her head and gently pulling it toward me so I could kiss her. Truly, I was feeling like $1,000,000 and learning a lot in a very short time. Our kiss lasted a long time and was overflowing with passion, our tongues dancing and our lips moving. Some part of my brain realized that I was a natural at it. Doreen was an excellent teacher and partner. It's funny how things kind of progress on their own when you're in the midst of something intense. Some things just naturally lead to others, even if you're experiencing them for the first time. This too was one of those times. Her arms gently wrapped around my neck as our kisses became more affectionate. Slowly, we shifted until we were lying side by side, with her on her back and me leaning slightly. My hand softly rested on her as I continued to kiss her, this time moving to her cheek and then down to her neck. I gave a gentle nibble on her earlobe, and she responded by holding me tighter, moving slightly in response to the closeness between us. "Okay, buddy, let's see what's up here." She seemed to be enjoying these latest moves, so I began moving down her body with my lips. Now, I love a woman's body, every single part of the female anatomy. Women are wondrous creations, their bodies icons of beauty and form. I worship willingly at the altar of femininity. But there was something special about Doreen. At 19 years old, her body was so firm, so shapely, so perfectly proportioned. Giving her pleasure came to me naturally. I wanted to experience every inch of her, so I started applying light kisses everywhere. I had this sudden urge to just look at her, so I reared back onto my knees at her feet, then drank in the startling magnificence before me. So long, so lean, her skin was a glorious permanent tan. Those long, long legs, the hips, the flat stomach, all topped by that gorgeous face and that tousled mop of dark hair. My God, she was a vision. We smiled at each other. "Did I pass your inspection?" she wisecracked. "With flying colors," I grinned back. "You are amazing." "Well, thank you, kind sir." We went back to action again, and it was completely amazing and intense. We laid there for the longest time, our arms and legs intertwined, our bodies pressed. Together, our faces buried in each other's necks, our breathing ragged and gasping, not saying a word. As our senses returned, our surroundings came into focus. We could feel the heat of the sun on our bodies and the hot breeze, the sounds from the songbirds in the trees adding a perfect commentary to a perfect union. I finally lifted my face and looked into her eyes from inches away. "Wow. Wow yourself." We exchanged a gentle kiss, brief but loaded with emotion. "I'm glad my first time was with you." Doreen's eyes became misty. "I was just thinking the exact same thing. I'm so glad I waited. For you." Another gentle kiss. I finally extricated my limbs and moved my leg, then laid on my back next to her. Doreen rolled onto her side and snuggled up to me, my arm around her shoulder and back and her head resting on chest, her leg over mine. I stared into space and she absent-mindedly ran her fingers over my chest. "Now I wish I wasn't leaving in 3 weeks. So why are you?" Good question. I thought a lot about it, long before this happened. Doreen, I have no idea. What I want to do with my life. My grades sucked big time and I don't know what's going to happen. Mom and Dad wanted me to go to USC and become a lawyer, but that'll never happen and I don't even want to be a lawyer anyway. I enlisted because it would give me time to think about stuff and grow up while getting away from home, and if I do end up going to college, the government will pay for it. But this is making me hesitate. I feel like I've found the perfect reason to stay. What would you do if you stayed? I don't know, that's the problem. Doreen let out a sigh. I hate to say it, but it sounds like you need the army. I hate to say it, but I think you're right. Even 18-year-olds could occasionally be grown up. She turned her face toward me and rested her chin on her hand. I'm going to nursing school in September, and it will take me 4 years to finish. I'll make you a deal. You told me you would be in the army for 3 years, is that right? Yeah, since I'm enlisting voluntarily, it's 3 years instead of 2 like the drafted guys do. Do you get to come home? Yeah, I get 30 days leave every year. It's a good deal. Okay, here's the deal. You go do your army thing and I'll go to nursing school. We'll stay in touch and see how things go between us while we're apart. You said you need to grow up. We both do. And I want a grown-up in my life. I'm tired of the jerks. Will you write to me? Well, duh, of course I will. She gave a wry smile. Will you write back? I'm a lousy letter writer, but for you, yeah, and I know where I'm going when I take leave. They don't have to be long. Just let me know how you are and tell me whatever you want to tell me. She pulled her hand out from her chin and stuck out her finger. Pinky promise. We both giggled at the childish move and linked our digits. Pinky promise. She looked intently at my face for some long moments. I'm glad I waited for you. I really like you a lot. That's how I feel too. We've known each other since the 7th grade, and I was too. Stupid to see you for who you are. I really like you too. Me too, but now we're past that. She glanced up at the large clock on the patio wall. And our time today has run out. My folks will be home in an hour, and it just wouldn't do to find us like this. They like you, but they wouldn't if they knew you were with their daughter on their patio. I laughed out loud. I knew her father. Yeah, not a good thing. I traced my hand down, her back. My face got serious. I have a question, and I'm not sure how to ask it. I already know the question, and no, I won't get pregnant. I've been on the pill for a year. Really? Yes, it keeps my periods regular, so my mom even knows. She leaned forward and kissed me. And it keeps me from getting pregnant. I could only smile. Okay, buddy, up with you. We need to get dressed and you need to go. We both stood and chatted as we got dressed. Fully clothed, we shared an embrace and another long, soulful kiss. Can I see you tomorrow? You better. We don't have much time left before you leave. I walked home without remembering a single part of the short journey, my mind filled with thoughts of Doreen. I was a totally different person than I had been just a few hours before. I felt like I had wings on my feet. I was indeed back with her early the next day and every day until I left for basic training. We enjoyed each other's bodies, both of us learning quickly what we liked and what we didn't. To me, she was a goddess, the ultimate expression of a woman, and I couldn't get enough of her. Not that we did anything outlandish, mind you. We were still inexperienced, so our explorations were often halting and nervous, but we did spend a lot of time wrapped around each other. It was like we were racing the clock, trying to store up sensual memories before I left. Oh, we spent some hours with our clothes on, just enjoying each other's company. On those last 2 weekends, we actually went on dates, enjoying good dinners and walking hand in hand on the beach, followed by steamy makeout sessions at popular parking spots. Our parents were quite pleased at the idea of us dating. They knew us and each other quite well and knew that we and our families were good people. My father had even asked me during my senior year why we weren't dating. I knew my feelings for her were growing and sensed the same in return, but as if by some unspoken understanding, we never acknowledged them out loud. Then the day arrived. I was reporting to the induction center at 6 a.m. the next day, so after a joint dinner with both sets of parents the evening before, we sat together on her patio while our folks discreetly gave us space. We just sat together, wrapped in each other's arms, occasionally talking, but mostly just being together. We parted around midnight after a long, long kiss and more than a few tears. Damn it, Doreen's epilogue. I barely made it through that night. We had come so far, so fast. I knew I had fallen hard for this wonderful man, this thoughtful and caring person. Unlike my previous boyfriend, Tom always put me first, caring about how I felt and doing things that he knew pleased me. It was new for both of us, but he somehow just knew what to do to give me the greatest enjoyment. I was so glad that he had been my first real lover. The only guy before him had been Daryl, but I had realized that we didn't have the kind of connection I wanted in that one special person. When I learned he was sleeping with Hillary, it solved that whole situation. Tom couldn't get enough of me, which made me want him even more. He adored my body and made me feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. Even that first time when I stripped in front of him, it seemed just the right thing to do. It hadn't been my plan when I saw him walking by, but as the day progressed, I knew what I wanted to happen. But back to that night. I knew we were falling in love, and I knew that I had to say goodbye. To him. I also knew that him joining the army was the best thing for him. I knew where I was going in life, but he was at loose ends. Being a soldier would help him get his head straight. But I hated the idea of him being away from me, and I cried all night after he left. That first year or so scared the hell out of me. His first letter arrived a couple of weeks after. He left, and after that we both rode a lot. They made him a medic, so after boot camp he spent a few months in Texas for training. The first time he came home on leave and showed up at my door in uniform, I thought I was going to faint because he looked so damn handsome. His shoulders were broader, his chin stronger, his whole bearing so confident and, well, manly. And he was mine. I was falling for him even harder. He was only home for a long weekend, and let's just say, we made the most of it. I adored his body as much as he adored mine. I was not in the least interested in the occasional male at school who would flirt with me or even ask me out. I just wasn't. Putting my words on paper had given me a different kind of freedom, and I told him every day that I loved him. He told me he felt the same way. Our relationship was where it belonged. They sent him away for a year on a difficult assignment, and I spent the whole time worrying about his safety. There were so many dangers where he was, and knowing he was in the middle of it all weighed heavily on me. It was hard to concentrate on my studies, but the letters kept me going. I wrote to him every day, and his frequent replies helped me stay grounded and hopeful until he was back. When he returned to the States, my mind was made up. So was his. Him. So I think we should, get married? Yes. We set off fireworks that night, and they had nothing to do with setting anything on fire, except ourselves. I'll summarize the rest. We got married while he was still serving. Fortunately, he was stationed at Fort MacArthur in Los Angeles for the remainder of his service, and since I was pursuing my nursing degree at UCLA, we saw no reason to wait. Our wedding felt like a union of two families, with our parents proud and beaming. He looked incredibly handsome in his formal uniform, and I could hardly wait for our first night as husband and wife. It felt like the beginning of something truly grand. I finished my nursing degree and was immediately hired by a major hospital, while Tom enrolled at Cal State Los Angeles after his discharge and entered their teaching program. I made good money, and with his VA educational benefits and him working a part-time job, we did pretty well for a pair of 20-somethings. He took summer sessions to shorten the process and got his teaching credential in 3 years. He had certainly matured beyond the teenager he once was, carrying himself with a quiet confidence that few possess. His experiences had changed him. He had witnessed tragic loss and destruction that no one should endure. Though he coped well, there were moments I'd find him sitting silently, lost in thought while gazing at the stars late at night. He was aware of how his past had impacted him and sought healing over the years through support groups and counseling, confronting his memories and emotions head-on. We both had great careers and loved what we did, so life was incredibly good. We both earned master's degrees, and he eventually became a school principal. I learned additional specialties and became a nurse practitioner. We became the proud parents of the 2 prettiest little girls you have ever seen, both of them with the dark coloring of both my Mexican blood and his Italian heritage. I never wondered what life might have been like with someone else. My man is as close to perfect as I could ever imagine, a kind, generous, loving husband and father, devoted to the girls and me, and a dedicated educator loved by his staff and students. I had hit the jackpot with him, and all I had to do was open my eyes. As I write this, we are approaching 60 years old, both of us retired and loving life. We travel, we hike, we bike, we entertain friends. We pour love on our 4 grandchildren, 2 boys and 2 girls ranging in age from 4 to 9. He is still handsome beyond belief, more so with silver tinging his hair and his elegantly aged face. Our feelings have not faded, and I still like to make love to him every chance I get. He still can't get enough of me and gives me pleasure that shakes the earth. I still love him to the core of my being, and he was right there the whole time. Tom's epilogue. Walking away from her that night was the most painful thing I have ever done. I knew I had to go, but I also knew how I felt about her. I was hating the world for a while. My 3 years in the Army had the desired effect. I grew up. I realized what I had to do to have a good life. And during one of those long, terrifying nights in the jungle, I had an epiphany. The universe told me that being a teacher was how I could best use my potential. The realization actually calmed me in the midst of all that horror. That horror never really left me, but it didn't consume me either. I protected Doreen from the worst memories and visited the VA when I needed help. My brothers in arms were a second family. We wrote to each other constantly and had finally expressed our love to each other. Every chance I got, I took leave to go home to her. Visits that cemented our relationship and deepened our love. When I returned from my time overseas, I managed to secure an assignment in Los Angeles, and that's when we finally tied the knot. She looked absolutely stunning, like a vision from a dream. And our families were beaming with pride. The entire day, my heart raced, overwhelmed by the fact that this incredible woman was now my wife. The love and joy I felt was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was the start of a new chapter that I had eagerly awaited through all the challenges I'd faced. She got her nursing degree, and I followed the universe's guidance and became a teacher. After my discharge, in the midst of our chosen careers, we welcomed two gorgeous daughters who looked just like their beautiful mother. Grad school, promotions, and new opportunities to live a good life followed. Our parents even became closer as holidays and celebrations drew us all together, and they shared our beautiful daughters and eventually the great-grandchildren they brought into the family. I often think about the circumstances that brought us to this, all the little pieces that had to fit into place in exactly the right way, at exactly the right moment. What would have happened if it hadn't been so hot and I hadn't had a hankering for an orange Julius on that day at that time? What if she hadn't stepped out of her door at the exact moment I was passing her house? What if she hadn't dumped the VW guy? What if her family hadn't been our neighbors? What if they hadn't bought a house with a pool? What if? I didn't just hit the jackpot with Doreen. I won the entire goddamn lottery. She remains to this day a model of a perfect woman and mate. The yin to my yang, my queen, my goddess, and my love for her continues to grow even after all this time. 40 years have elapsed since that fateful day, and she is still the center of my universe, still beautiful with silver streaks in her dark hair, still kind and giving, still hotter than the surface of the sun. I still can't get enough of her and worship daily at her altar. And oh God, the intimacy was still out of this world fabulous. She can still burn every inch of me. I can't believe she's mine. And she was right there the whole time.